Today, we have two wonderful stories for you about female infidelity and the consequences it led to. You know, I used to be the kind of person who went through life with a bit of naivety, thinking that most people were honest and nice by default. I guess I always tried to be that way myself, but these days I've become a bit more cynical and not as easily fooled. Still, sometimes I have my moments of being too generous and getting taken advantage of. It's like my faith in humanity gets shattered, but every now and then, something or someone comes along and helps rebuild it, even if just a little. Back when I was younger, I was a total pushover. Now that I'm 31, I've learned a bit from my mistakes, but at 22, fresh out of college with my computer science degree, I fell head over heels for Natalie. Natalie was 4 years older than me and was also studying at the same college, working towards her English degree with dreams of becoming a writing teacher and getting an MFA. We had different backgrounds and interests, but surprisingly, we hit it off really well. Natalie originally came from Greece and lived there until she was 10, and I had moved to the USA from Japan specifically for college. All credit to Natalie for that. Oh man, thanks to her, my English got way better. It's kind of funny, though, because I also picked up a bunch of Greek from her, but she never bothered learning any Japanese. Anyway, we got super serious and dated exclusively after just 2 months of being together. For a whole year, looking back, I've realized that I've always let myself get pushed into relationships, even back in my teenage days. If a girl showed interest, I just went along with it, thinking it was the nice thing to do. Don't get me wrong, I really liked Natalie, but now, years later, I see that she pretty much pressured me into the relationship too. After finishing my degree, I scored a sweet job as a software developer with a handsome salary. Natalie was still wrapping up her BA in English and worked at a clothing store in the mall. I guess you could say I was a bit of a sucker, always trying to be nice. I even let her move into my place without paying rent. She said she'd cover groceries, but we ended up eating out most of the time, so she didn't contribute financially at all. She claimed she paid for school through scholarships, and I had no reason to doubt her then. After she graduated, she popped the question and proposed to me. It was a bit weird because I grew up thinking guys were supposed to do the proposing, but hey, this is the USA, and things can be different here. So my parents live in Japan, but they came to America for the wedding. At first, they weren't too thrilled about me marrying someone from a different race, but Natalie won them over with her charm. I always spoke highly of her, and since my parents don't know any English, I had to do a lot of translating. Props to Natalie for being patient with that. Her parents, who are Greek Americans, were totally cool with us being together. They didn't see any issue with their daughter marrying a younger Japanese guy. Speaking of parents, early on in our relationship, I told Natalie that some of my distant relatives were part of the Imperial Japanese during WW2, and some even died in kamikaze missions. I also mentioned that I've been practicing judo my whole life. I wasn't bragging or trying to sound edgy, it was just her asking about my past and interests. In return, Natalie shared a pretty intense story. She told me about how her father used to be involved with the mafia in Greece and had to flee to the USA with a new identity to avoid getting caught for a crime he committed. This was back when we were just getting to know each other and not super serious yet. I think she wanted to impress me with her background and show that she had some serious street cred. Personally, she's about as gangster as a wardrobe from Abercrombie & Fitch, but once we got serious as a couple, Natalie came clean about her dad's mafia hitman story, admitting she was just trying to impress me and score cool points. I guess she didn't think we'd last long, so she spilled it in a cute way, hoping I'd like her more. Weird flex, right? Anyway, I accepted it and moved on, thinking her dad was actually a retired auto mechanic. I didn't dwell on it too much. Fast forward a couple of years, and I think our marriage is going well. We even have a daughter named Katie, and I managed to buy us a house with a down payment and a monthly mortgage. I also took care of Natalie's school loans. Turns out her scholarship claims were all made up, which, looking back, should have been a big red flag about her honesty. After being a homemaker for a while, Natalie told me she wanted to pursue her MFA, but none of the nearby universities accepted her due to her low undergraduate GPA. However, she got into a private for-profit university that overlooked her GPA for the bargain price of $20,000 per semester. Quite a steep cost. Now, my daughter Katie is 7 years old, and let me tell you, people are absolutely amazed when they see her. Having a mixed Japanese and Greek child is something truly beautiful, and I'm incredibly proud to be her dad. I mean, I know all parents feel that way about their kids, but I'm not kidding when I say it. These days, though, I've become more clear-headed and realized that Natalie wasn't exactly the best partner. At best, she was a lazy opportunist, and at worst, a shameless gold digger. Back then, I wasn't as clear-headed, and it didn't occur to me that she might have just been using me to pay for her education and have a child so she could secure a free house and child support before divorcing me and taking everything. Sometimes I get a bit weak and imagine that maybe Natalie didn't plan it all like that and actually loved me at some point. But honestly, I worked full-time while she dropped off our child at her parents' place to attend classes most days. A couple more years went by, and Natalie finished her MFA. I still thought our marriage was going great. I had a sensible work schedule, spending time with my wife and daughter, doing all the regular family stuff. We'd go out to dinner, take trips, and celebrate anniversaries like any normal married couple. So up until now, Natalie has always been telling me how much she loves me, love of her life, and all that stuff. But then out of the blue, she hits me with the cliché "I need space," which I now realize is Greek for "I've been cheating on you for a while now, and I don't care if you know." Can you believe it? Of course, I ask her if there's someone else, and she's all like, "No, I just need to find myself." I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? Are you moving out or what? I swear I was such a big sucker. I ended up staying in some crummy motel room, paying a fortune weekly, all while still covering the expenses for my 3-bedroom house just to give her space. Natalie, being all noble in general, would let me come to my own house on Sundays to see my daughter and pretend to be a happy family for a little while. But guess what? After just a month of me being in this Motel 6, she drops the bombshell that she wants a divorce. I was devastated, and here comes the classic line, "I need to find myself." Yeah, right, total bullshit tea. The divorce news wasn't even a bombshell, it was more like the last nudge that broke the camel's back. I had to ask her again if there was someone else, and she sticks to her no. So she straight up told me she didn't love me anymore. I had kind of accepted it, so I wasn't completely devastated when Natalie said she was leaving. But the real gut punch was knowing I'd have to share custody of our kid instead of being a full happy family all the time. And let me tell you, I was a real sucker. Natalie didn't want to share custody, she wanted full custody. To make matters worse, she started making up claims about me being offensive while I was at that Motel 6. She went to her parents and spun a tale about how I had been offensive for years. She even used my judo practice as proof that I had a lot of aggression. During the court proceedings, she accused me of being offensive to our 3-year-old daughter. I tried to defend myself, saying she was making it all up, but she just called me a liar. Let me tell you, the whole process was ugly and messy, and the judge, who was relatively young but seemed jaded beyond her years, sided with Natalie. She denied me custody and only gave me supervised visitation rights. As Katie grew older and started understanding words, Natalie poisoned her mind against me to the point where Katie refused to see me, even for supervised visits. I don't know if Katie herself said, "I don't want to see my dad," but she always relayed that our daughter didn't want to see me. She communicated this through text messages. Sometimes I hoped I could catch her admitting on an audio recording that I was never offensive and that she was a big liar, but I think she was worried about that too, so she stuck to texts where she could be more careful with her words. A whole year went by. I'm still paying the mortgage on a house I can't live in, and I can't see my daughter. Without any warning, then one day, my boss calls me into his office and fires me. Since it's a regular job, they can fire me for any reason without having to explain. It was a shock for my team to see me carrying a box of my things out to my car. As the days and weeks passed, my former colleagues informed me that there were rumors around the office that my ex-wife had called our HR department and made false claims about me, saying I wasn't paying child support, that I was obsessed and an offensive husband. Now that I know what I know, I realize I should have immediately told my boss about my divorce and warned them that my ex could be a bit crazy. I texted Natalie to ask her about it, but she acted clueless and had mutual friends swear me to secrecy. They told me that Natalie had become a composition teacher at a community college after getting her MFA. It seems she waited until the child and spousal support I paid became a standard, regardless of my income, and then, for her own reasons, she decided to sabotage my career. Luckily, I had plenty of references from my old job and a sought-after skill set, so I knew I wouldn't stay unemployed for long, but to keep up with child support, spousal support, and mortgage payments for Natalie without draining my savings, I needed something to hold me over. So, I started driving for Uber. I did it for a few weeks while also interviewing with different companies. I had saved enough money, so I wasn't desperate enough to accept just any job. While doing my rideshare gig, one day I picked up a passenger named Victoria. She was around my age, just 4 months older, and worked in graphic design. She had Italian heritage but had lived in the USA her whole life and didn't speak the language. So, we started chatting, and before I knew it, we were officially dating. She's fully aware of my situation, and the best part is that this is the first relationship where I didn't feel pressured into calling someone my girlfriend. During this time, my lawyer tried to negotiate with Natalie's side to reduce my monthly obligations or change visitation rights, but it didn't work out. Natalie's lawyer presented some paperwork claiming her job was only part-time and couldn't meet her lifestyle needs. Weirdly enough, Natalie herself never showed up to these meetings. Her lawyer represented her instead. Oh, and get this, she even went ahead and filed a restraining order against me from entering my own house just to back up her false narrative about me being offensive. It's almost laughable now. I do have some judo training, but I never really use it to hurt anyone, even in self-defense. My training partners say I hold back too much, always worried about making others uncomfortable. So, Victoria and I dated for a few months. Meanwhile, I scored a new job in the tech industry with a higher salary than before. Unlike Natalie, Victoria has her own place and didn't rush into moving in with me. Actually, she asked if I wanted to move in with her. I enjoy my one-bedroom place and prefer taking things slow with her. Over time, Victoria was totally fine with the whole situation. She shared with me how she's going to community college to get her AAA in graphic design. It turns out she's naturally talented and already excels at her job without any formal education. But of course, her employer needs her to have some college degree for an official promotion. What a coincidence, right? Here's the interesting part. Victoria's English teacher, a core requirement for her degree, is none other than my ex-wife. Crazy, huh? But Victoria never spills the beans about our relationship to her teacher. I asked her to keep it hush-hush, and she's totally on board with my plan. Victoria goes above and beyond and becomes friends with the teacher, getting all chummy by suggesting they grab drinks after class. Over the next few weeks, she's a real master at winning trust and working her way into a position of confidence. So, she finishes the course with a good grade and still maintains her friendship with the teacher. And here's where it gets even better. Victoria manages to record a conversation where Natalie admits she works at the college full-time. All it took was a couple of drinks and some friendly chit-chat to get Natalie talking. Little did the teacher know she was chatting with her ex-husband's girlfriend. It's pretty funny how these things unfold, especially when someone thinks they can trust you as a friend. Cheers to Victoria for handling this with style and getting Natalie on tape making fun of me for driving for Uber. Priceless. Get this, the guy's got a master's in computer science, but he's driving a taxi. Victoria did her thing slowly but surely, recording Natalie admitting she's a liar and making fun of her exes like they're losers. She really got one over on them. Victoria actually got Natalie on tape confessing that her ex was a total harmless dweeb or real scaredy cat. So, was he a nice guy? Oh yeah, he was like sweet maple syrup, Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. But then Natalie had the nerve to mock his Japanese accent with those ignorant ching-chong sounds. It's just messed up. And she goes on about how this weakling never even touched her or their daughter. Oh man, Natalie, if you mess with me, you'll be in big trouble. And if he ever tries to harm our daughter, I'd do something drastic, like poison him or whatever. So, about a week later, I put on some fake tears in front of the judge and convinced her to order him to pay a hefty amount. I even managed to get him fired from his job with an asterisk next to it. Why would I do that if he's supposedly a nice guy? It's just for fun and games, you know, messing with him a bit. Every time Victoria and Natalie went out, Victoria would show me her phone all excited and play the recordings of what went down. I already had some good evidence, but then Victoria told me about this piece de resistance, a moment when Natalie talked about cute guys in the English class she was teaching. And she's 28. While most of the guys are like 19 to 21. Natalie is quite the character at 33. She proudly boasts about hooking up with students all the time like it's no big deal. She was even having close relations with her classmates while she was still married. She talks about having closeness with them like it's some kind of sport in her shared office. She laughs about doing it on another professor's desk and not even bothering to clean it up or tell them afterward. And she jokes, of course, they hooked up with me. How else do you think some of those clueless students managed to pass their courses? Victoria actually got specific students' names. All this is pretty nasty, but so far, it's technically hearsay, and she might deny it when questioned. Seems more like a matter for the school itself to mull over and decide. Victoria has already finished her associate's degree and got promoted at work. She managed to arrange a meeting with one of the top administrators at the school to discuss something urgent, and she shows him the recording she has. The administrator thanks her and assures her that they'll take care of the situation. The part of the recordings that caught my attention the most was when Natalie was bragging about bringing students to her house, getting close with them, and even doing pills with them while her roommate Katie was also at home. I didn't waste any time trying to be fancy with lawyers. Yep, I sent my lawyer the recordings too, but before that, I called the police, and here's what went down. Natalie got fired from her job, lost all her college degrees due to academic dishonesty, and got banned from teaching the students who were subpoenaed for questioning. She didn't get kicked out of school, but they got a serious warning to keep any romantic stuff away from campus and not involve school employees. The cops found pills at Natalie's place, and now she's paying the price. She lost custody, alimony, in her home because she got an 8-year prison sentence for pill possession, child endangerment, lying under oath, and making false reports to the police. If she behaves well, she might be out in 5 years, but she'll never get custody of Katie again. On the bright side, Katie is doing great. She loves Victoria, loves her dad, and is back home as a happy and lovely little girl. Oh, and I discovered that Natalie's parents lied in court to make me lose custody of Victoria, so I tipped off the police, and now they're looking into a murder case from 25 years ago involving Natalie. Anyway, things have turned around for Victoria and me. We're married, living together with our daughter, Victoria, and we're expecting a son in the fall. Life's getting better. My parents still don't know English, however, Victoria is learning a lot of Japanese, as well as Victoria when it comes to marriage and being a father. My brain says to be cautious, but my heart says to have faith that not everyone is terrible. So yeah, screw you, Natalie. Thanks for reading. Story 2. You know, since I was a kid, I always dreamed of becoming a doctor. But senior year in college, I had to shift gears and aim for becoming a physician assistant, mainly because of money troubles. My dad got hurt at work, and I had to step up to help support the fam. So, I got to know more about PAs. The shorter study period and the chance to help people really drew me in. That's also where I met my future wife. Life's been pretty sweet ever since. As the years went by, we got on top of our money problems, so I started thinking about medical school again. My wife was totally on board. Soon after we had that talk, she got pregnant. What a surprise. Turns out I did really well in my applications and got to pick from a bunch of schools. My wife was thrilled for us. But after our baby was born, she got hit with postpartum depression, and times got tough. But we pulled through. I had to travel all over the country for interviews, so I was gone a lot when our kid was between 4 and 6 months old. My folks really came through for us during this time, supporting my wife a lot. I gotta admit our romantic life took a bit of a hit for a year after our kid was born, mostly because of all this. So, we made the call to choose a school in a different state, even though I had a free ride at a local one. My wife was totally pumped to take off with me, and the other school had a better reputation, was in an awesome spot, and they threw in a pretty solid scholarship too. Then wham, COVID hit with a kiddo to think about. We were cool with the idea of daycare, and she was nearly done with her student loans. She had them refinanced, so no break there. We decided it was best for her to stay close to my folks and keep her job. They're amazing and look after our little one on weekdays and give her a breather when she needs it. The plan was to bring them up in the spring if COVID would let up. With our savings, she could even take a couple of years off work. No problem. Everything seemed just fine between us until late October when she drops this bombshell that she wants to split up. I was totally floored. All I could muster was telling her to do whatever makes her happy. I know, lame response, but I was thrown for a loop. I mean, I just called to check in on her, and she hits me with that out of nowhere. So, we didn't chat for about 3 weeks after that bombshell. I rolled back into town for Thanksgiving, and suddenly she's acting like she never said anything about splitting up. She says she's just been feeling down because we haven't been close, what with the distance and all. We had a real heart-to-heart and decided we'd try to work things out then. I was back in med school for a week before they called off the in-person classes for the current term because of COVID. As I'm sitting at the airport waiting for her, she sends me a text saying she needs some alone time. So, I ended up crashing with my folks for a few days. When we finally got together to talk, she admitted she's not happy with my decision to pursue the dream of becoming a doctor. Turns out she's been scared to tell me this whole time. I asked if there was anything I could do to change how she felt, and she dropped the big one: it's either her or med school. I picked medicine. Man, that was the hardest call I've ever had to make. Now my kid's gonna grow up in a broken home. I suggested couples counseling, but she wasn't having any of it. When I asked if there was anything I could do to change her mind, she firmly said no. She was done playing second fiddle. I'm still reeling, and the worst part is I won't get to see my kiddo as much as I want to because I'm usually halfway across the country. Right now, I'm looking into some stuff, thinking maybe mediation might be the way to go, but everything's kind of blurry. She's saying we can split everything down the middle, our bank accounts, belongings, even custody of our kid. She's even offering to buy me out of the stuff we bought together. I'm at a loss about how child support is going to play out since I won't have a job for the next 3.5 years, and she's making decent money. Honestly, I don't know why I'm even sharing all this, maybe because some folks here might have been through something similar. Who knows? The world's gone mad. Update. I posted all the stuff above when my wife, out of nowhere, said she wanted a divorce. We've been together for 6 years, hitched for 2, and we've got a little guy who's 1.5 years old. We set up mediation, which we both agreed on, but then she upped and canceled it a couple of weeks back. She said she wanted us to work through stuff ourselves. So, I went home after Christmas. We even planned a road trip to New Orleans just to chill, eat some good food, and spend time together. Then last night, I made up my mind to snoop through her phone while she was out cold. The thing that jumped out at me was her chats with her sister and best friend were wiped clean. My spidey senses started tingling right away. So I come across this group chat she missed deleting, where there's some guy being talked about. I do a deep dive into her social media and land on WhatsApp. She'd cleared out her chats with this dude and her sister and best friend, but she missed deleting a group chat that included all three. They call themselves Lost MILFs, one divorcee, one who's never been married, and my soon-to-be ex-wife. Then, bam, I find it all. She'd been seeing another guy, hooking up with him, even saying I love you to him. She shared with her friends how freaked out she was that her period was late and was bad-mouthing me, telling her friends complete lies about stuff I never did. Her sister, who I thought of as my own, straight up lied to my face, acting surprised when I told her about the divorce. They even went through my phone records looking for any dirt on me, but they came up empty. Wow, he really is perfect, I think. The reality of the divorce made her snap back to her senses. She told this guy it was over. She confessed her love to him, said she had no feelings for me but still wanted to work on our marriage. This dude I've never even met had the nerve to say I don't care about my son, that he could be a better dad to him than me, that he loved her more than I ever could. She asked me to look after our kiddo while she went to therapy, but nope, turns out she handed off our kid to me so she could go mess around with this other guy. She's just awful. I can't wrap my head around how she turned from the woman I married into this. She tried to hide it all. If I hadn't snooped on her phone, I'd still be blissfully clueless, thinking everything's good. Just yesterday, she was boasting about how her patients always want to see pictures of me and our son, saying we're both good-looking and look like twins. It's like she's living in some twisted fantasy. Guys, I can't put into words how blindsided I am. It's always about someone else, always. She rewrote history, remembered things wrong, and flat out made stuff up. It's like that whole affair fog people talk about. Anything to make sure she's not the bad guy in her own story. I'm about to pick her up from work. I'm actually waiting in the parking lot right now. I plan to confront her at the same park where I proposed. After that, I'm handing her the divorce papers and heading back to San Francisco this weekend. Oh, and I forgot to mention there were a bunch of people creeping on my social media and sending her any posts I made. Super weird stuff. Update. The moment I rolled up to our spot, she knew something was up, started crying right off the bat. I dropped the bombshell. She apologized, admitted she was garbage, a terrible person. She said she didn't even recognize herself anymore and that she hated who she'd become. She wanted to know how I found out, asking who do I need to cut out of my life, who can't keep a secret. She thought it was either her sister or her best friend who ratted her out. I just stared at her and said it didn't matter who spilled the beans, if someone did, they did me a solid. That's what I would have done. The issue isn't how I found out, it's that she tried to hide it, that she did it at all. She agreed and apologized again, but it felt phony as hell. Her first reaction was probably how she really felt. She admitted there's no excuse for what she did and she knew it was wrong, but she tried to explain her side of things. She said she was going to be totally upfront. Turns out it started with a different guy, not the one I was aware of. She claimed it all started last October with a different guy. Get this, I brought in a pest control dude to deal with some critters at our place. This guy was a married dude in his early 40s with 2 kids. She told me she was feeling pretty down and alone after having our baby. She had postpartum depression, so she started sexting this pest guy from her work. She swore it never got physical, said she'd feel gross after sexting him, block him for a couple of weeks, and then go back for more. This went on from then until this March. I had no clue. She told me the guy still tries to call her from different numbers, and she just blocks them. His wife is still in the dark. Yeah, seriously. When I headed off to med school, she told me she started feeling lonely again. That's when she met a 26-year-old undocumented tile worker in September. The dude didn't speak a lick of English. That's the affair I found out about. She claimed she wasn't thinking straight at the time. Whenever I'd come home for breaks, she'd act like everything was normal, we'd have sex, I'd go back to school, and she'd text me all lovey-dovey, call me every night. Then she'd fool around with this guy during the day. I remember her going into quarantine for 10 days because of COVID. She works in healthcare. She shacked up with him for those 10 days straight while my parents looked after our kid. And she kept up her daily chats with me the whole time. Man, it's messed up. I felt like I was gonna hurl. She confessed she knew she'd taken things too far after that, said she understood I was too good for all this. That's when she dropped the divorce bomb on me out of nowhere. She figured if I ever found out, I'd leave her for sure anyways. She promised these were the only 2 affairs she had while we were together. Not that it changes anything. Oh, and get this, she spent $4,000 of our money to help this guy she barely knew get a work truck. The guy was broke, and she wanted to give him a leg up. She admitted she knew nothing serious could come out of her thing with this guy. He made her feel less alone, but that's about it. Not like you, she said. And while she claimed she wasn't blaming me or trying to make excuses, she couldn't help but remind me that I was the one who chose to go off to med school instead of staying local. And all I'm thinking is, what did I do for you? What do you do for me? But I kept that to myself and just kept listening. She claimed she never told the other guy she loved him, but I don't speak Spanish well enough to confirm. She's Latina, I'm black. She said Google Translate got it all wrong when this dude said I didn't care about our son, even though he'd never met me. She didn't contradict him because she didn't want to add to his hurt when she broke up with him. She let him vent, she said. She claimed she never badmouthed me to him, saying that I'm an awesome dad, but I called BS on that. I mean, why would this guy talk smack about me without knowing me? He had to base his opinions on what she told him about me, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Then she asked me why I wasn't yelling at her, hitting her, treating her like the trash she felt she was. She repeated that she despised herself, regretted her actions, and didn't even recognize herself anymore. She wished she had talked about her feelings instead of resorting to cheating. She admitted that the cheating only pushed her further away from me and made things worse. She realized she wasn't happy with what she was doing, and the problem was within herself. She blamed it on postpartum depression, vowing to never have another child. She promised she would never marry or be in a relationship again and that she would focus on herself and our son. She was deeply ashamed, she confessed, and would never be able to tell her very Christian parents about what she'd done. I replied that I didn't react harshly because it wouldn't help anything. I don't do things just for a fleeting feel-good moment. I do what I believe is right. She claimed she got why I wanted a divorce, but said she believed she could turn things around better herself, become the woman she was when we first met, and basically mend our relationship. She proposed a separation and promised she'd wait for me as long as it takes. She said she'd remain single while I'm free to do as I please during that time. She wondered if maybe with time, I could forgive her. She knew I didn't trust her anymore, but she was willing to work hard to rebuild that trust. She even offered me to come back to our place for the night, saying she'd sleep on the sofa bed, and I could have the main bed if that would make me more comfortable. Of course, I said no. Here's my problem: if we didn't have a son, I'd be out of here. This whole thing is totally messed up. I could find someone else who would treat me right, someone I could fully trust. I brought her into my life, my family, we had a son. And what did she do? She screwed me over. But we do have a son. I chatted with my cousin, whose wife cheated on him with his best buddy when their kid was about the same age as my son. He said he cut ties with her, and it felt good at the moment. But when his son grew up, he's 9 now, it had an impact on him. The kid started acting out. He would ask his dad why he and his mom couldn't be together anymore. He was upset about the situation. My cousin said the pain of seeing his son suffer like that was even worse than the pain of the divorce. He advised me to consider giving it some time and see how I feel. He pointed out that cheating is pretty common these days, even among celebrities or folks you'd least expect. He said he'd get it if I chose to divorce her, but based on his own experience, that might not be the best move. What he went through pretty much aligns with all the research I've seen. Studies have clearly demonstrated that growing up in a single-parent home can lead to significant negative impacts on the kid. My son is my everything. For his sake, I've decided to give it a shot. I'm planning to cut off contact for at least 6 months to a year. Then I'll reassess how I feel. Regardless of what I achieve, if I become a doctor, live out my dreams, and my child doesn't reach his potential, then what's it all for? Anyway, by then it was really late. I headed over to my parents' place and hit the sack. I don't know, it seemed like she was being honest. She opened up about something that happened which I had no clue about. She seemed to feel regret, but that doesn't undo what she did. Having a kid definitely makes things more complicated.